My name is Mel Oakes. I live in San Diego. I've been retired for several years, and I'm a member of San Diego Fly Fishers. And so, what I want to do is give you some information about fly fishing in San Diego Bay using a float tube. I enjoy fly casting, I enjoy fishing, and I wanted to do fly fishing in San Diego without having to travel, go once a week, and the float tube provided the answer to that. So I'm going to give you a lot of information about the float tubes and fly fishing in San Diego Bay, uh, all the things that I wish I had known when I decided to go about this. So these are the two float tubes that I have. Um, you basically sit on the seat in the middle, and your legs hang over the back, and you propel yourself by using swim fins. The float tubes that I have are an Outcast on the left and the Caddis on the right. There are a number of other brands, including Fish Cat and Cumberland, and you can research those on the internet. They'll range anywhere from $200 to $400. The Outcast has a single bladder that is inflated, and um, should some catastrophic event happen that causes that to deflate, the seat cushions themselves are separately inflated and can serve as a flotation device. The Caddis has two bladders, one on each side, and the seat is foam, so if one of the bladders deflates, you still have the other one for flotation. The Outcast is filled by an inflation port that you can see up there on the front right. The Caddis has two Boston valve inflation ports in the pockets, a little inconvenient to get at, but certainly easy to use. We generally will use an airhead uh, uh, pump. The nice part of that, it inflates on both the upstroke and the downstroke, so you can blow up the tube pretty quickly. The the Outcast has a proprietary connector. You may have to rig an adapter to get that to fit onto your airhead tube for inflation. And there's a little cap that you put on after you inflate it. Deflate it by pushing on the yellow button in the center. On all of these, you really don't need to inflate them rock hard. The Caddis, as I said, has two separate bladders and has stitching along the outside edge. And the first one that I had, I was under the impression that it had to be rock hard, and ultimately I blew out the stitching on the edge. Just inflate it to the point where you can, still easily indent it about half inch with your thumb, and the small wrinkles are out of it. Okay. Most of us will use a basket to put all of the other accessory devices, except for our fish rod uh, and the float tube. Makes it easy to keep track of and get it in and out of your vehicle. So these are my waders that I wear. Um, they keep you dry, they keep you warm. Some people prefer to wear shorts in the summertime when it's warm, or leggings simply when it's cooler. Note that there are footies here, then those are important to protect, and we don't want to get any snags or cuts or breaks in them. There's a little waterproof pocket up on the inside, and pretty waterproof when they're on the outside. Um, be aware of the sun. We don't want to give the dermatologists any extra business. Wear a broad brimmed hat. Again, we're fishing in San Diego Bay and we get a lot of sunshine. Um, Also, sun gloves. Your hands are sitting out there in the sun for the several hours. Most of the time, we're out for anywhere between 3 and 5 hours in the bay, and these work very nicely to protect your hands from the sun. We also will wear a buff. Buff is basically a sleeve that goes over your head, covers your neck and the lower part of your face, and protects you from the sun. Can also keep you a little warm if it's chilly out there. Um, Use sunscreen, okay? Your nose, the top of your cheeks, and all of that. Uh, I like to use the baby formula so that if it gets up into the area of my eyes, I don't have any problems with stinging. Okay. Again, you sit on the seat in the middle of the float tube, and your legs hang over the back side of the seat, and you propel yourself with swim fins. There are different models that you can get. Uh, the stroke is basically a reverse bicycle kick. I thought initially when I went out that you just did a flutter kick like you were when you were swimming. So of course I was churning up the water quite a bit, and my colleagues then informed me that my fins needed to stay down in the water and do the reverse kick. Um, when I'm really pushing hard, I will make a point to point my toes straight down as much as I can and push actually against the top part of my ankle. You'll need a net to land your fish with your fly rod. And again, we want to protect those footies in our waders. So you need to have some beach booties or surf booties to protect those footies. These need to be generally 2 sizes larger than your shoe size because again the thickness of the footy in the waders. Okay, ideally you would take your waders with you when you went to buy your surf booties, but if not, be sure to order them at least a couple sizes larger. Um, when you get out, obviously all your gear is going to get washed. I pay particular attention to wash, say, salt out of these zippers, but then I have cut the bottom out of some water bottles and I will stick them down into the boots so that the boot stays upright and the air can circulate and dry them out better. Everybody needs to wear a personal flotation device. This is the one that I use. You can get them to be set up for automatic inflation. If they get wet, there's a little pill inside that dissolves with the water and allows the pin to strike the CO2 canister. I've gone with the manual one here where if I need, I will pull that handle and that will inflate the vest. Most of us will wear a lanyard around our neck that has some of the equipment that we need. In this case, a forceps up on the top to help get the flies out when the spotties swallow them, which they'll do about 20% of the time. You can hook your fishing license on there, a little plastic carrier. You'll need a line clipper for replacing tippet and flies, and a whistle in case you get in trouble. And the bottom little rod-like device is a hook sharpener. If you get snagged, you may always want to check your hook and make sure it's okay, particularly if you have a really hard snag, which might be on a rock. That hook can get really blunt, and you can try to resuscitate it with the sharpener there. You don't want to fish with a dull hook. It's not going to work well when you try to do your hook set. Carry a piece of carpet like this red carpet here. The carpet is placed down for your feet when you're changing into your waders, and you have your stocking feet, and also when you are in your waders so that you don't puncture the footies with rocks or glass or anything that might be on the ground, and of course a beach towel to dry off. We have obviously what we call winter weather here, where the temperature gets down into the high 40s, and if you have a stiff wind coming off the ocean and the bay, it can get pretty chilly. So pick your gear accordingly. There's a little windbreaker on the right or a heavier jacket, and when it's really chilly, I'll wear a stocking cap. This is a rain jacket. I got it at the end of the season last year, having gone fishing in the bay when it was raining to see if I could catch fish. I did. I decided then I wanted a formal, good fly fishing jacket. I got it, and it didn't rain at all then the rest of the year. So I'm approaching the rainy season now, and we'll be giving it a try shortly. The float tubes generally have pockets on each side. And this is the right-hand pocket on mine on the Outcast. The red roll there is a little compression bandage in case I get a skin tear, and a few band-aids below that. I have two small rolls of line there. The first is 10-pound line up above. That's what we use for our tippets. We want to use heavy enough line so that if we get into the weeds, which will grow pretty much anything shallower than 8 or 10 feet, we want to be able to pull out of the weeds with our fly. The bottom roll there is 16-pound. Generally, we'll use 16 or 20-pound line for the leader. The spotties are not line shy, and so we don't have to worry so much about that. The little plastic box there has several things in. One is the little red ball up there that is a float, and in fly fishing speak, that's called an indicator. Regularly, it would be called a bobber. You might put that on your line on your tippet if you're in a shallow area. You want to try to keep your fly up out of the weeds below. The two little clips below show tippet rings. Okay, there are some little tiny ones up above there that would be used for trout fishing, and the larger rings that are used pretty much in the bay where you're having larger line strength tippet. So this tippet ring is tied onto the end of your leader, and we generally fish 2 tippets or 2 flies, and those are tied into the ring as well. If you get broken off, it usually will be at the fly or on the tippet just below the ring, and when you retie your tippet, then you don't have to lose part of your leader when you retie. You just tie into the ring. Also in that pocket are my sun gloves that you can see just below the little plastic case, and also the transducer for my fish finder. The transducer is the black plastic cylinder, and above that is a float, a yellow foam float that lets the transducer sit on top of the water right beside your float tube. There's about 25 feet of line of cable that connects that to the module that you'll wear around your neck. The fish finder is the black device that's sitting in the middle. It's actually just a little larger than 2 packs of cigarettes. It's right above the watches there. It's got a nice screen. That particular model is the Lucky brand. It's a depth finder, fish finder, and water temperature gauge. That has changed my fishing more than any other single thing. It's connected again by the line to the transducer, and there's a lanyard off the bottom, and you just attach that around your neck. You just flip it up, take a look at the screen, and you can see whether or not there's any fish down below and how deep you are. I like it a lot. There's a number of different brands. One of my buddies has a Garmin, and there are different models of this particular one. So up above is the box of flies that I carry, an assortment, and I'll show you the preferences in just a little bit. The yellow stringer up there on the top right is available in case I catch something that is keeper size. The legal size limit for the spotties is 14 inches. Most of the ones that we catch are in the 12 to 13 inch range, and I understand from my neighbor that they are tasty. I've brought them a few as well. But if you catch some other larger fish that you want to take home, there's a stringer that you can hook them up. Just below that is a 2-way radio with the red buttons around the face. We with our fishing group are on channel 5.5, and we can chat with our buddies that are out there in the float tubes and talk about what flies are working and whether or not where we are is a hot area or not. I have a watch there, and it's waterproof, and I will simply attach that to the Velcro on one side of the float tube so I can tell at a glance what time it is because I don't wear a wristwatch. I also wear flip-up sunglasses. I like the flip up because I use a phone for my picture taking, and I can tip them up. Also, if I'm tying on flies, then I can flip those up and see a little more clearly. Be aware of the tides, and this is the U.S. Harbor tide chart for San Diego. I will check that each day that I go out, and I'll see when the high tide, low tides are, and how much the tidal flow is. I will use that to help me know which direction I want to go off the launch site and where I want to be when the tide changes, so that I don't get caught coming against a really strong tidal flow to get back to my launch area. Uh, which is not to say that I haven't gotten caught a few times. Okay, so these are some of the flies that we use in the bay. Again, our main target fish is the spotted bay bass. I'll show you a picture of those in a little bit. And the two on the left-hand side are really kind of the gold standard for fishing in the bay. The top one is a red and white Clouser minnow, and the bottom one is the Crazy Dad. One of my longtime fishing buddy mentors only fishes those two. Yeah, he says that's the only two that I use. A lot of the others of us will change, and sometimes there'll be one hot fly versus the other. The orange and brown Clouser on the right, the Lefty's Deceiver in the middle, Chartreuse and white, and the Quattrochi's Beach Bug down on the bottom right at various times are the hot fly. So we try to share that information. Another good device is the rod sleeve or sock. That's the coiled up device that you see here, and it's basically a woven nylon sleeve or sock that fits over the rod. And you can see the several of my rods have the sleeves on there. They are nice for short travel. Okay, I live about 20 minutes from the bay to the various sites that I go to. It's about 20 minutes. So basically, the rod is going to go from the garage into my Sequoia and then get into the float tube and go out and fish. So I'm not in the airplane. I don't have bags that might get thrown on top of it or anything. So I have 4-piece rods, but I simply break them in the middle. You can see the one on the left there, the far end of the rod is doubled back and is back behind the reel. And you can see that I've got the flies attached to a cork, and they're right there. So it's kind of ready to go. The other thing that I use is our small clips to hold the rod together. These are just little hair clips that I get at Walmart, and you can see the one on the right-hand side is a little spring-loaded guy, and this holds those two pieces of the rod together for convenience, goes into the sock, and I'm ready to travel. The nice part is that you can keep your rod strung, and you can keep your flies on, so that when I get in the water, all I have to do is unclip, put the two pieces together, and I'm ready to obviously take the cork off the flies, and I'm ready to fish. I don't have to stop and restring the rod at the back of the vehicle before I can get out and then tie on flies. So I will use a piece of cork. Again, we use generally 2 flies, and it is just like that. So that's the way it'll be when I get out in the water. The rod goes together, the cork comes off, and I'm ready to catch fish. Okay, fly casting in the bay. So if you're fishing for trout, generally you're going to use a floating line, and then you have your leader, and then your tippet and your fly. In the bay, the spotted bay bass are at the bottom. Okay, so we need to get our fly down on the bottom to catch those fish. Okay, so we need a line that's going to go down along with the weight of the fly. So you can get a full sink line, meaning that the whole 100-foot line will sink. And there are different rates that you can get the line to sink. You can buy the 6-inch per second, which is the fast sinking line, down to a slow sink that would be a 3-inch per second. The other thing that you can get is a sink tip line. Okay, the sink tip line has basically 75 feet of floating line, but the far end has about 25 feet of sinking line. And so that works nice. Again, 6-inch per second or 3-inch per second. You might want the slower sink line if you're doing a lot of fishing in the shallow areas, as opposed to the 6-inch if you're out where you don't have to worry so much about getting caught in the weeds. Then you might want to just get one that gets down faster. The sink tip line then is attached to the leader attached to your tippet rings, and again, we will generally, most of us fish 2 tippets and 2 flies. When you're rigged like that, the bottom fly is usually about 4 feet, so we'll have about 4-foot long tippet, and that typically would be the Crazy Dad. The other tippet would be about 8 inches shorter, and that would be the red and white Clouser. Occasionally some of the guys just will go with 1, but most of us will use 2 tippets and 2 flies. So this one is rigged with red and white Clouser and an orange and white Clouser. So this particular reel that I have is the 3-inch per second. So this is the one actually that I use in the shallow areas. You can see the green end of the sock there on the rod itself. So again, in the shallow area, you might want to say, okay, the weeds are about at the 5-foot level. I would like to start my retrieve at 4 feet. So if this sinks at about 3 inches per second, it's going to take about 4 seconds for this to go down each foot. So if I'm going to go down 4 feet, then I'm going to do like a 16-second countdown and then start my retrieve to stay above the weeds. This one is my reel that is a 6-inch per second sink tip, and so it's going to get down faster to the bottom area where I don't have to worry about getting caught in the weeds. Okay, so I'm getting ready to go fishing here. I've got my float tube. I've deflated it partially just so that I can get it to fit in the back of the Sequoia. You can see my plastic basket there with all my odds and ends in it, and you can see my fish rods in their green sleeves up along the left-hand side. Okay, got my beach towel. Now I like to sit on the back of the Sequoia. But some guys will actually carry a little folding chair with them to get dressed. Okay, so I'm getting ready to go. I'm pulling my float tube out. I'm going to inflate it up, put in my plug on the outside there when it's all inflated, and I'm getting ready to get into my waders. You can see the red carpet down below, and actually you can see a little water and runoff stuff there just to the side of the carpet. So once I get my shoes off, my socks would be standing in that, and I don't want to do that. Also, there may be some rocks or broken glass or who knows what waiting to puncture A, your foot, or B, the footies on your wader and cause a leak. Okay. So I'm getting set, get my waders on. And again, I sit on the back bumper. Some of the guys would use a little folding chair for that. Got my waders on, so that's going to keep me warmer and drier. The waders come with a little belt, and you can tighten that around the middle. And the idea of that is if for some reason you fall in the water, that will slow down the flow of water into your waders because if you're in a deep area and your waders fill up with water, you're going to have a hard time getting back up to the surface, and people, in fact, do drown when they're out in the water in waders, and the waders fill up with water, and they can't recover. So I make the belt kind of tight, although I don't anticipate ending up getting in the water that deep. Okay, so I've got my beach booties on there to protect my bottom of my waders, getting them all zipped up. And again, when you get them at least 2 sizes larger than your shoe size. Getting my sun gloves on. I don't want to get any skin cancers on the back of my hand. And I've got my buff on. Actually, that's just looking at one, but the shirt that I have on actually has a hoodie on the back and a built-in buff. So you'll see that on my face there coming up from below. I've got my heavier jacket on because it's been cool, and I've got my old beat-up broad-brimmed hat. Okay. Anything you don't want to get wet, keep in the car. Don't forget your keys. Don't lock your keys in the car. And I like to take pictures. So I catch a fish. I like to take a picture of the fish to show and put up on our website. I have a little lanyard that attaches to a little card that's underneath the camera, between the camera and the case, and that's attached to the zipper on my waders. I just have to make sure that when I put the camera back in, that it goes in the pocket and stays dry there. I could zip it for the most part, but I tend not to. Initially I did, but now I'm confident enough that I'm not going to fall over, and salt water is going to kill your camera unless it's a waterproof camera. But your phone is not going to survive that. Get your personal protective device on, your lanyard that has your devices, and your clip-on sunglasses. And I put my watch on there so I can see what time it is, and I'm about ready to go out. You store your flippers in the front end of your float tube and your catch net, and I've got my rod here. It's already rigged from home. It's got the 2 little clips on. You can see one up here on the top end of the float tube, against the top end of the float tube there on the right. And getting in the water was one of the worrisome things for me when I first started. There are some folks that would sit on the grass and put their swim fins on, then walk backward down to the water where their float tube is, or carrying their float tube back down backwards with their fins on. That seemed to be problematic for me. I would probably tend to fall. And on the other hand, we initially, when the very first time went out, we would hang on to the side of a fishing pier at the launch site, the boat launch, and wade out until we were about knee deep in the water, and tie up our float tube to the pier, and stand on one foot and put on the fin. A little unsteady doing that, and coming out doing the reverse of that. Did in fact fall over. Fortunately, my buddy was behind me and managed to catch me, although I knocked him off balance, and he was able to keep both of us from going in the water. So I sat down on the floor of the living room and to try to see whether I could do a safer entrance to the water. So I've got all my stuff in the front of the float tube. I've got my rod in my hand on the right hand side, and I'm walking out. I will wade out until probably about 8 inches deep in the water. I will set my float tube down. Okay, and now I simply turn around and sit down. Now, if your seat back folds forward all the way, this one does not because it's inflated. Watch out. I had one time when I was starting to sit like this and the back of the seat fell forward. on the caddis and ended up sitting on top of the seat back. So I had to put my swim fins on, get myself back up to the shallow area, stand up and put the seat back up, and then sit back down again and reverse the process. So with the outcast, I don't have to worry about that. It's going to stay up. Okay, so boom, I just sit down. I'm I'm safe, and now all I have to do is reach back, grab my swim fins, put them on, and I'm basically good to go. Now I need to hook up my fish finder. You can see the transducer there in my right hand with the yellow float. 25 feet of cable, most of which just sits in a pocket, and that cable then plugs into my fish finder, and you can see the lanyard there over my left wrist, and the lanyard is up around my neck. So that just hangs down in front of me. I simply tip it up, look at the screen, I see how deep the water is, I see whether there's fish reflections underneath, and I can see what the water temperature is. So the transducer, it just sits in the water like that and attaches to the little Velcro on the side. Okay, I've carried my fish rod out. It's doubled over. I will take off the little hair clips so that the two pieces then come apart. I put it out and put the two pieces together, take the cork off, and I'm ready to go. The exit sequence. When I was coming out that first time, as I've described, I tended to fall. So basically getting out is about the same as getting in. I will kick myself onto the sand. So I run aground here. I run aground so that I'm stable. Okay. At that point, I'm going to reach down and take off my swim fins. And I want to be aground here so that I don't float back out into the water when I've got my swim fins on, because then swim fins off, because then I would have to put them back on and kick back up to shore again. Okay, so I get my swim fins off, and then I use my heels to go back to a comfortable depth to stand up. Okay, so I can't stand up easily. I'm 80 years old. I can't stand up easily when my feet are basically about the same height as my bottom. So I need to go back out until I'm about knee deep, and then it's easy with my legs down to stand up. So I keep a hold of the float tube. I stand up, get my balance, turn around, grab it, and just exit the water. So that's all safe. Just have to be a little careful sometimes if there's a lot of waves. Generally not too much of themselves in the bay, unless you're in an area where there's a lot of fast boats going along and some waves that might be coming up against the shore as you're getting out. Okay, fly casting in the bay. So this is a little different. If you're used to fly casting with a floating line for trout, and now decide to go out in the salt water in the bay, it's a little different feel for the casting. So you have a heavier weight at the end of your flies, at the end of your line with the flies, but also the sink tip line, and your fly has lead or brass dumbbell eyes on it, and that provides the weight for that to sink down to the bottom where your fish are. So initially I was told that you just do a roll cast to cast out, and that really doesn't work, because you've got a sink tip and the weight of the flies, and the line is going to go down, and there's water resistance to the line movement. So what I do is I start with about 10 feet of line, which may be some of your line and your leader and your tippet out in front, and then do a series of false casts with that, using the resistance of the water for your back cast. So I've got that 10 feet of line out. I will cast that out. I'll let it hit the water, and immediately then do a back cast again. And the resistance will actually load my rod and shoot that line back a little further. And I find that generally it takes me about 3 false casts to get it out where I want to be. So I'll end up with about 30 feet of line out from the tip of my 9 or 10 foot rod. Okay, so snags, there are snags in the bay. Generally, it's going to be grass and weeds up by the shore. Sometimes you catch some rocks or concrete or whatever. Don't break your rod. One of the times that I went out ended up breaking the tip of my rod when I was snagged. I did not realize. I didn't have my depth finder then. I didn't realize that I was really quite shallow, and the tip of my rod was actually down uh, against the snag to the rock, and pop. So most of the time it's weeds or grass, and again we've got a 20-pound leader and a 10-pound tippet, and you can pull through most of the weeds and grass without any problem. If you're on a rock, tip the rod behind you and grab the line and pull directly on the line. You can wrap the line around your arm if you need to pull. And ultimately, if you lose your fly or tip it, generally it won't go up onto your leader. It'll break at your tippet ring or below your tippet ring. And again, check that hook to make sure that it's not dull or broken. Okay. So we're moving along, usually pretty steadily with a little reverse bicycle kick with your fins. So the fly is being pulled along slowly or fast, depending on how fast you're kicking along. So I enjoy fly casting, so I enjoy doing a long cast. So as I am pulling along, my fly is going to tend to just go along the bottom. Some people do a short cast, and consequently, when they do little strips, strip means to pull the line. If they do a strip, it tends to make the fly pop up a little bit and then come back down. Okay, always keep your rod tip in the water. That allows you to feel the bite better. And there's also a saying that we say tight lines, and that means keep your line tight so that if you have a bite, you'll be able to feel it. So tight lines is kind of the equivalent of good luck on your fishing. I'll see you another time. So tight lines. Now, the folks that are trout fishers always talk about feeling the tap. The trout do little taps on your line, and sometimes you have to see your indicator dip a little bit to know that you've had a bite, or you feel little taps on your line. Of all the fish that I've caught, and it's been quite a few, I would bet only 4 or 5 times with the spotted bay bass that I have felt taps versus an aggressive bite, an aggressive hit on that fly and your line. That there's no question that you've had a bite. It pulls your line from your stripping hand or in your stripping hand, and the tip of your rod bends down even further. Again, you're going to keep the tip of your rod in the water. Okay, so once you do that, we're advised to do a strip set. So you set the hook by pulling on the line and then raise the tip of your rod up. Okay, so the movement of the fly, I like to do a twitch of the line to kind of mimic a little short baitfish movement, and I do that with just my index finger. Other people like to do a longer strip where they will pull the line kind of up to their chest and then let it go back. And most will like a little pause in there, so they'll do a strip, strip, pause, strip, strip, pause. I tend to do twitch pretty constantly. Intermittently, I'll do a longer strip. Okay, so the spotties again are ambush feeders. They like to sit there and see the bait fish come and hit them hard, and that's the way most of the bites are going to be with your rig in the bay when you're fishing for spotted bay bass. Okay, so where do we fish? We go to a number of spots here in the South Bay. This is the J Street Marina in Chula Vista, and this is the boat launch. So a word about the boat launch. Be careful at low tide. Algae forms on the boat ramp, and it's really slippery. About the third or fourth time that I went out, I was going down a concrete boat ramp and coming out, and had just tied up my float tube to a rock, was the sequence that I did at that time, and was starting to walk out up the fishing ramp. It was so slippery. My feet went right out from under me. I was on my back in about 8 or 10 inches of water. It was so slippery I could not roll over. I could not get any traction. It was just being on like being on absolute ice. So anytime that you're going down a boat ramp, really be cautious. I avoid them as much as I possibly can. Here, there is no area to avoid going down that concrete ramp, but at the J Street Marina, the notches in the ramp are about 3 or 4 inches deep, so it's not quite so bad. So if you go off at the J Street Marina, generally we'll fish around to the left to then get outside of the marina area out by the boat channel that we'll see in a little bit. Okay, if I go a little bit further past the boat launch turnoff in the J Street Marina area and go up a little further past the marina, past the RV park, I'll come to Bayside Park. Okay, that's a nice spot. There you can see the parking on the right over there, and a little grassy area, and then a sandy beach. There's a little step there that you have to go down. You can see the channel markers, the boat channel markers for the marina out there in front. It's very shallow out to that first channel marker, and the channel is about traditional, 17, 20 feet deep. And then the far channel marker. There are bunches and bunches of fish out there. You just get on the other side of that far marker, and you then are looking at the area that is called the flats. And it's called the flats because that is flat from there over to the far shore, which is the Coronado Cays, and the launch site over there that we use is Grand Caribe. We'll see that in a little bit. That is all the way across, about 4 to 5 feet deep at low tide, maybe 10 feet deep at high tide. A lot of fish in there. There's the spotted bay bass, there are mackerel, croaker, barracuda, corvina, bonefish, and stingrays. And a word about stingrays, you do not want to get stung with a stingray unless you really know what you're doing, which does not include me to that depth. Just cut the line or break off the line. Don't risk getting stung with them. It's going to spoil your day. If you should get a stingray sting, get the wounded area in hot water as you can stand. It's going to take about an hour for all of the poison to get neutralized. Just cut the line. It's not worth it. Okay, so the flats, that's very shallow in there. There's a lot of fish and a lot of vegetation. So that would be one of the spots where you might want to use your slower sink tip line and do a cast out, do a countdown, and then start a steady retrieve of your fly and then cast out again. Okay, coming north to National City, this is Pepper Park. This is a launch area here. Again, you're kind of stuck. There's no dirt area here to launch, so you kind of have to be careful going down the boat ramp, because that again gets slippery in the low tide area. You can go off to the left and go over around the boats in the marina, or go off to the right out toward the main channel. Tidelands Park, go across the bridge to Coronado. This is a nice sandy beach area, and parking is just right behind that. You can go to the right underneath the bridge toward Glorieta Bay. And our favorite area to fish is over toward that left boat that's in the marina there, the anchorage area off the shore. Be careful over there. The tides are strong, and there is an area called the Vortex over there by that left boat. So the main channel, you can see some of the shipyard cranes over there on the far side, over at the far end of the bridge. the the big deep channel over there has a lot of water moving through it, and that actually will do like a Venturi effect, a pull of the water out of this tidelands area toward the direction of whichever the direction of the water is flowing with the tide in that channel. So if you think, okay, I'm going to go out that way with an incoming tide, you might fight your way out against the incoming tide, which is going to be coming from left to right here. You get out to that area by that boat, the water, yes, in front of you here is going to be coming into the Glorieta Bay area, but the water going down the channel, the main channel there toward the South Bay, will actually pull you out from this into that channel. And so it's called a vortex out there. The same way when the water is coming with an outgoing tide, if you're out in that area, you can get an extra pull from the water moving here out of the tidelands area into the main channel to the left, aggravated again by all this water moving over there. So you have to be really careful. If you also are unfortunate enough to get caught with the outgoing tide and the winds, you're going to have a lot of work coming back to this launch area. There is no good recovery area nearby with the rocks along the shore here to the left. Okay, this is Glorieta Bay. You can see the Coronado Bay Bridge up there on the horizon to the left, the blue bridge. I will always use this sandy area where the paddle boarders go out. You can fish to the left up toward the marina area. There's a lot of fish sometimes along that wall there. We'll tend to go out to the right around that fishing pier, and there's a swim area over there on the right. On the right is the amphib base, and we like to fish out there along the edge of the channel. That usually is pretty productive. Again, if you're going to go down the ramp, this is the one that I slipped and fell on at low tide early on. So remember we talked about the flats when we were talking about Bayside Park. This is Grand Caribe in the Coronado Cays. You simply go down south from Coronado on the Strand to the Coronado Cays exit and go into the Coronado Cays and take an immediate right turn and go down to Grand Caribe Street and take a left, and that takes you out to this little park. Again, there's a boat channel out there that provides transit for the boats that are owned by all the people that have boat slips in the cays, which is everybody. But on the other side of that is the flats, and again, all the way across to the other side, real shallow and full of fish. So that's an area a lot of guys like, and again, bunches of different fish. This is Mission Bay at Bahia Point. Again, some parking up behind, a little grassy area, a little sandy area to walk down. I've fished there several times. I've not had good luck there, but other folks have, and it still baffles me. But all of the procedures are the same. You can fish around to the right. That goes out toward the inlet for that area. And some of the chaps have some good luck there. Shelter Island in San Diego. Again, parking, sandy beach, easy launch. The tide flow can be really strong here. Okay, you can see Point Loma in the background. The deep channel out in the middle has a lot of boats going in and out, big boats, fishing boats that are going fast. So you'll get a lot of waves. You can see waves coming into the shore there that are small, but nonetheless enough that can kind of tip you over as you're getting out. So you just have to be cautious with that. Again, one of the first times that I went out, I went out between the boats there that are moored, and the tide was outgoing, and then I started to come back, and I had a really, really tough haul getting back here to this launch area. My buddies later said, oh, you just need to come in closer to shore to get out of that current flow. And so I said, well, thanks for telling me. So if you are caught in a fast flow like that here, get over to the shore. That doesn't work too well at the tidelands, but here it does, so you get out of that strong flow. Liberty Station. This is behind the Corvette Diner. It's an old boat ramp from back when they did fish processing here in this area years and years and years ago. An old ramp can again be slippery down at the bottom. I always use the dirt and rock area on the right there, and it's a little treacherous because of the rocks that are sticking up. You just have to watch your step. And we launch out, we'll go to the left. That's the Marine base. Over to the left, there's a little marina over there. Looking straight across, that's the airport. And we will tend to fish over in that corner and also then go around out to the right toward the inlet to that area. Spanish Landing is another good spot. Big sandy area. Parking here is $1 per hour with a 4-hour max, and you can fish to the left over toward the marina and the hotels, or fish to the right, which goes out toward the main channel, and I believe that's Point Loma on the horizon out there. So what are we after? We're catching the spotted bay bass. They're fun. Okay, I have a 4-weight rod and a 6-weight rod that I use in the bay. The 4-weight rod is extra fun because it's very flexible. The fish give you a good fight with that. The spotties do a good fight for about 1 minute down on the bottom when you first hook them. They kind of give up a little bit as you're stripping them up to the surface, and then when they get up to the surface, then they give you another fight. They about 20% of the time the fish is going to swallow your fly. You need your forceps to get your fly back there. Okay, so how do you land the fish? Okay, so you do your strip set. In other words, you pull the line and then raise the tip of the fly rod. Transfer the line under the fingers on your right grip and strip the line in with your left hand while you're maintaining the line with your right hand. Okay, so the weight of your rod and the size of the fish plays a role in the catch. So my 4-weight rod is extra fun when I'm catching spotties or smaller fish. It's really fun when I catch a double. A double means that you get a fish on both of your flies. Or when you get one of the other species of fish, okay? So you just guide the fish into your net that you're holding your net in the water and guide the fish onto that just like you would any place else. So landing a double, that's extra fun, extra fight. You'll get to know pretty quickly that you've got more than one on your hook because they will really it's a double pull on there. So with my 4-weight rod, this is extra fun landing a double. On the other hand, with my 4-weight rod, if I catch a legal size halibut, I probably am not going to be able to raise that up off the bottom. On the other hand, I've only had 2 times in the last couple of years where I've hooked something that I couldn't raise up, and from the way that it moved on the bottom, I think one was a big ray, and I have no idea what the other one was. He just took off and broke my line and was gone. So the 6-weight rod, if I caught a legal size halibut, I could probably bring that up. So it's a trade-off. So it's just a little loss of sensation with the 6, but the 6-weight rod is just fine. On the right-hand side there is a double with a spotty and a mackerel. Mackerel are really fun to catch because they don't quit. They are constantly on the move, back and forth and around, and difficult to get into the net even. So that's extra fun if you have a double with a mackerel. So how do you land a double? It's really hard. Initially I thought, gosh, I had to work them up where I could get them both in the net, but just bring them up to the side of the float tube and net the top tippet. Okay, it's going to be about 18 inches difference between the two the top fly and the bottom fly. So net the top one and just pull that over and put it on your lap, and then grab the line. Just grab the line, the bottom, tip it, and just lift that fish up by hand into your net. Take a picture, and then we do catch and release. Again, the mackerels make it really fun. Okay, shallow water. So if you're inside 8 to 10 feet, the weeds get enough light to grow, and they give the fish a lot of cover, and they love it, but it gives us a lot of grief. So consider a slow sink tip line. Do your countdown for the time for sinking, and try to stay above the weeds. Sometimes tie hook guards on your flies, and you can generally pull your weeds loose from a snag. Anytime that I feel a snag, I will pull my line in and check, because most of the time weeds are going to be fouling your fly. So I'll tidy up my fly and cast back out again. Okay, tidal flow and the wind. So your float tube sits high in the water. I used to worry initially that the bow waves or the boat wakes when they came in were going to tip me over, but ultimately I've come to realize that that I'm just kind of like a leaf on top of the water, and I just float up and over, and I just kind of sit back and enjoy it. I would not even begin to consider taking a float tube out in the ocean and have breaking waves come over. I'm strictly in the bay, and none of my colleagues go out in the ocean with a float tube. Okay, so watch the tide times. We talked about that, and the tidal flow. So sometimes tidal flow may be 8 feet of flow from high tide to low tide, and other times not so much. When there's not much tidal flow, the fish tend not to bite so much. Ideally, if you can just ride the tide and basically troll your fly, the weeds will tend to be going with the tide the same direction, and your fly will be less likely to snag. On the other hand, if you're going against the tide, the weeds will be tipped the other way against you and more apt to snag. Okay, so plan where you want to be relative to your launch or exit point when the tide changes. Okay, don't get caught at some distance away and then have to fight the tide, and hopefully not the tide and the wind to get back to your recovery area. So here the wind generally shifts around 9:30 and comes on shore. Okay, so again, moving with your swim fins. Boy, if it's a strong tide and a strong wind, you're going to exert a little effort getting back where you want to be. Watch out for that vortex at Tidelands and the strong currents at Shelter Island. Okay, patching a leak in the float tube. Remember, we've got the bladders in there. I had some leaks, and I got some repair tape, and that just did not stick. And I saw an ad on internet for Tear Aid. This stuff is great. It's Tear Aid Type B. Apparently, there's an oily component in the vinyl in those bladders, and the Tear Aid has something that compensates for that. And in the little promotional video that they show for the ad for the Tear Aid, the guy takes a pencil and jabs a pencil-sized hole in the bladder. Goes up to the shore, it just dries it off a little bit with a towel, cuts off a piece of this stuff, sticks it on, inflates, and it's back out on the water in like 5 or 10 minutes. I've had a leak that I tried the repair tape on, didn't work. I put this stuff on, and it's back in business. So if you have that problem, or especially if you're going to take your float tube fishing someplace else, stick some of this in your side pocket. Okay, where's the nearest restroom? Okay, all of the places that I've shown you have restrooms that are readily accessible, like at your launch area, except the ones at I'm blocking here for a second. At Bahia Point, at Mission Bay. Bahia Point, there is a restroom there, but it's some distance away. probably like a quarter of a mile. And the other spot that does not have a restroom readily available is Liberty Station. There is a restroom there down the street a ways that's probably like a quarter of a mile. So what do I do? Well, if you've got your waders on, that's problematic if you have to use the restroom. So go to the restroom before you go out, before you leave home. I limit my fluid intake before I go out. I do not take my diuretic. I do not drink any coffee. I'll eat my little protein bar, but I may limit myself to like just little sips of water so that I have like maybe 1 ounce. Okay, so I've minimized my fluid intake, and with that, I'm good for like 4 or 5 hours. Now, astronauts can wear Depends diapers or adult diapers, and I'll put a pair of those on. That way I don't have to worry. Um, I haven't used them, but it's there if I'm catching a bunch of fish and I'm way off on the other end of the fish area. I don't want to have to worry about getting back to go to the restroom. Some of the folks don't wear waders in the bay, and they don't have to worry about it. They wear shorts or leggings, and it's obviously not a worry for them at all. If you're fishing in the reservoirs around San Diego, then waders are required. Just as a backup, if you open the front and rear driver side doors, not the passenger car doors, but either way, you can do it with the passenger side or the driver's side. If you open the front and rear door, that makes a nice stall for using a milk bottle if you needed to, any port in the storm. And when you get home, don't forget to take your medicines and get rehydrated. Okay. So after the fun stuff, you got to wash things up. You're out in the salt water, and it's going to play havoc with your things. So wash down your float tube, wash down your all of your tools, wipe down your fish finder, take your reel apart, wash that thoroughly with the spray, take off the spool, loosen your drag, wash it out, and put a little WD-40 in there around the drag area. So, those are all the key things. So we've got a group that's called the Wednesday Float Tube Group. We fish pretty much every Wednesday. If you want to be on the email list to know where we're going to go that day, I send that out, and I'll give you some tide information and tell you what flies were hot the last time out. Just send me your email address to me, melaoaks@gmail.com, and I'll put you on that list, and you'll get that email. So generally, we will have reports and pictures on Facebook on the San Diego Fly Fishers page. Like I said, you catch a fish, take a picture, and tell us what happened when you went out fishing. So again, the obligate disclaimer: the contents this simply reflect my experience with float tube fishing in San Diego Bay. I've got no economic affiliation with any of the equipment that I've mentioned, and the opinions are just mine and don't reflect any policies of the San Diego Fly Fishers Organization. These are just things that I've been taught by my mentors or that I've figured out on my own, and wish I knew all those things before I started off float tube fishing in the bay. I love to fly fish. I like to fish a lot, and the float tube has opened up that horizon for fishing and doing that. So come fish with us, and tight lines, my friends. Okay.